Hang on!
Can't break someone's arm like that, and you definitely shouldn't try if they have a gun pointed at you. Hey guys, this is David Christian from the Modern Martial Artist YouTube channel. I've been obsessed with martial arts since I was 5. I got a black belt in Kempo and Taekwondo in my teens. In college, I studied JKD, boxing, and MMA. After graduating, I taught martial arts and gymnastics for over 10 years. And nowadays, I'm creating content for the Modern Martial Artist YouTube channel, where I break down the techniques used by famous fighters. So today we're gonna break down some Black Widow fight scenes from some fun Marvel movies. So let's get started. Okay, so this is a really cool sequence that looks really unrealistic. I've tried parkour a while ago, but I'm not super into it, so correct me if I'm wrong in the comments. I think this is a Kong vault. She wraps her legs around his head and then does like kind of an aerial or layout. This is highly unrealistic, but Demetrius Mighty Mouse Johnson pulled off something that was near as unrealistic and cool. Obviously, it doesn't defy the laws of physics because he can't use wires, but he did manage to suplex an opponent and then mid-suplex let him go, and then mid-air got into a position for an armbar, which is absolutely insane. And if you saw it in a movie, you'd say that's impossible. That was impossible, but it's not, I guess, as impossible as you think. You just need to be literally one of the most skilled acrobatic fighters on the planet. All right, so there's this really cool moment here where she jumps off of his knee to knee him in the head. This actually was a Boss Rutan knockdown, but unfortunately, as cool as it looks, it was most likely fake. The closest thing you're gonna get to a real version is probably Anthony Pettis in his Showtime kick, where he jumped off the cage, not someone's knee, but off the cage, and almost a knockout. If it was a knockout, it'd probably be the coolest one ever. The guy recovered, but it's still really cool to see. So here she does what's been called nowadays an oblique kick, which was in savate. It's in French, I forget the French word for the kick, but I think it's literally just kick in French. Like, that's how important they considered this kick. And then I think Joe Rogan called it an oblique kick for some reason, which I think is the side of your ab, I'm pretty sure, so I have no idea why it's called that. But it's shown to be insanely useful in MMA. John Jones is a big fan of it, and when someone comes in heavy on the lead leg, it's really useful because you could stay in the same position and then just stomp their leg really quickly with zero loss of balance and barely any commitment at all. Bruce Lee was a huge fan of this kick. John Jones, along with the eye pokes, definitely took that philosophy from Bruce Lee, and it worked really, really well for him. So it's cool to see some of the more modern techniques. I mean, old if you listen to Bruce Lee, you know, but some of the more recently shown to be effective techniques in these Marvel movies. It's kind of neat to see.
Hang on!
She does kind of what I talked about earlier, you know, the Showtime kick, jumping off the wall, except in this case, she punches a guy with some electric stuff. Very cool. What I wanted to talk about was how she goes ahead and disarms this guy's gun. I'm not an expert in weapons or disarming weapons. What I do know for sure is that you should never try to disarm someone the way that she does here. And that seems obvious, but believe it or not, I've seen a number of martial artists, like, you know, they're called McDojos because they just, you know, have these techniques they say work is unfounded on nothing, and then they teach it to people, and people get this false sense of confidence. So what she's doing is she's wrapping she slips his gun, and he puts it out there with one hand, like he's throwing like a you know, deep stance kung fu punch for some reason. She wraps her arm around, and then it looks to me like the intent is that she's able to disarm him by breaking his arm like that. And when I grew up as a kid, I saw techniques like this taught at my own school, the first school I went to, all the time. Some of them work, like, you know, it's actually fairly easy to get someone like in an armbar in a real fight. It happens by accident all the time. But stuff like this just will never ever work. There's not enough pressure, there's not enough leverage. You don't want to risk it with a gun, but you don't want to do this technique without a gun. You can't break someone's arm like that, and you definitely shouldn't try if they have a gun pointed at you. All right, so we have a really cool sequence here, which is a sweep into a cartwheel kick. Cartwheel kick, obviously you wouldn't try it in a street fight, but Senchai, who's famous Muay Thai fighter, like extremely elusive, extremely slick, has knockouts and knockdowns from cartwheel kicks. It's one of those things that you wouldn't think would work, but does. But I really love the choreography here, how it just smoothly transitions from the sweep into the cartwheel kick. That's pretty cool looking. Once again, don't try to kick a weapon out of somebody's hand in real life. But I think the majority of people know that. I only say it because I've actually seen that kind of stuff taught in martial arts schools, which is why you have to go to a lot of them. And you have to train in a lot of different styles and try out a lot of different schools to kind of weed through the McDojos.
Engine room secure.
Last thing I want to talk about is this really cool move where he grabs her from behind. She elbows him. He kind of like she grabs him from behind. He grabs her and tries to pick her up. And then she reverses direction by kind of kicking out, doing like a kick up, and then coming down. And once again, this is something that looks ridiculous, but this has actually happened a number of times in a number of different ways in wrestling and in MMA. GSP in particular has been like hoisted up midair, about to be slammed. And because he has what's called in gymnastics like air awareness, he knows where his body is at all times, even when he's not touching the floor. And body awareness. He knows his opponent's own balance and own weight so well that he's been able to kind of kick his way out of it and in times even reverse the situation and get his opponent into a takedown instead. And when you could go from a really bad position and then through just skill and experience reverse that and put the opponent in a bad position, that's how you know that you're amazing. Fedor Emelianenko was also really, really good at this, especially for such a big guy. Like, it looked like he was going down, and then he'd take the other guy down. It's a very judo kind of concept, and not as silly as it seems. Very cool choreography in these movies. I love how it's influenced by modern-day MMA and modern-day kickboxing, but they also make it flashy enough to where it's fun for everyday audiences, you know, which is how it should be. You don't want completely realistic stuff in superhero movies, but it is cool to see some things you recognize, and it does kind of ground you a little bit in reality. Thank you so much for having me again, and I look forward to next time. Check me out on Modern Martial Artist on YouTube for more fight breakdowns and cool stuff like that.
And if you like that video, you can also check out David breaking down a fight scene from Mortal Kombat.